Hey there, welcome to Sharkcast Pod, a podcast dedicated to the greatest sporting club in the history of the world. Bit of a different episode tonight. We've got a special guest. He's been on the show before. His name is Michael Gillard. We'll get to the intros in a sec. Former statsman for the Sharks in the glory years and lifelong rusted on, season ticket holder, the whole works. But Michael was at the AGM tonight with a few other people, and because I couldn't get there, it was nice that he's offered his time to let our listeners know a bit of what went on. And without further ado, Michael, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
Sam, yeah, good, thank you. Good to be back again, and an informative night like normal at the AGM. Not a lot of people there, and that's historically the case. There would have been lucky there was 50 people there, but again, all the hard calls and what have you, and yeah, a good night.
Were the 50 people involved in the conversation? Everyone was kind of, interested in having their say. What was the vibe like as far as that kind of goes?
Yeah, for sure. You're given the opportunity to send questions beforehand, but that's all well and good. But a lot of people, as the night goes on, like to ask questions based on what's being presented and what's available on the night. So yeah, it's pretty interactive, and Dino, to his credit, he was chairing the meeting tonight, is quite willing to answer those questions and honestly, and with a couple of secrets as well, which is good.
So it's been revealed, the big one, or one of the big ones, is that the coach has signed on for a 2-year extension, taking him to the end of 29, I believe. And coach was in the house.
Correct,
talk us through that. Was it as simple as, hey, we've got an announcement to make, boom, and then there he was? How'd they go through that with you guys?
Yeah, so that was pretty much the first item on the agenda, even before getting into the annual general meeting information and what have you. So yeah, hot off the press, around about 6:35 announced. Yeah, Fitzy was in the house there with his sidekick Darren Mooney, so that's good news. I think we'd all been wanting to see that happen, and it's come now, so it gives stability, and then I see that it hit the mainstream not long after. So yeah, fantastic news.
And how was Fitzy? Did he do a speech? Did he have a little bit of a chat to the audience, or?
Not at that particular time. Got a bit of an applause from the audience naturally, but then there was some questions from the floor in relation to some other bits and pieces around the heritage of the club, and we can maybe touch on that a little bit later. But he gave some really good insights in terms of how them as the group see themselves in the community and stuff like that. And it's quite pleasing to see that whilst you might not see a lot of it on the surface, they're under no illusions in terms of what those guys stand for, what they're playing for, and that type of thing as well. But we can talk about that a little bit later if you like as well.
Yeah, for sure. Let's hit the boring stuff, the money. So you graciously gave me some notes. Are you able just to talk about, in roundabout terms for simpletons like me, the money situation?
Yeah, so the way they operate and the way they present the results is from a group perspective. So it's the Lees Club and the football club combined, even though they're two entities based on the annual report it's put together. So overall, complete revenue streams was in and around about the $46 million mark, which is fantastic. Less expenses, etc., etc. So it comes down to be around about bit over $3 million net profit before tax, and then after tax it's around about $2.5 million. So I think overall that's a pretty good result. There's obviously some money in there that comes from the NRL grant, and that's around about 20 odd million. But again, based on Kareela and based on the football operations and what have you. I mean, for people that keep an eye on these things over the years, the football club used to lose big money every year, but now it's in the black, and it's in the black quite substantially. And I mean, if you think about some of the revenue streams that we got that are a bit restricted in terms of game day, etc., and membership and stuff like that, I mean, I think it's still a pretty good result overall.
Okay. And was there any talk about future money coming in, or any kind of new projects, or any kind of any news there at all? What to look forward to in the next financial year, or was it more just looking back?
So no, they're clearly looking at ways to generate further income going forward. I mean, the big one obviously is the lease club.
Hmm.
That that's the big asset, and that's where additional income is going to come from. But in saying that, they're not standing still and just resting on their laurels in relation to that. And I mean, it's only early days, but they're thinking about, what can we do with our assets, right? And the Leeds Club now is their asset, which is back in their control, so they can do some stuff around that. Secondly, the Kareela precinct, so there's some potential opportunity to redevelop that as well. I mean, very early days with that, but they've got like a 10-year plan that they're thinking about looking at. So, what does the group look like in terms of their asset position and revenue streams in the next 10 years? So, I mean, they don't stand still over there, so that's good in that regard. But yeah, the Leeds Club's the big one at the moment that they're waiting to get on board, and from all accounts, it's on track. Save the weather and a few of those things and what have you. So, everyone's looking forward to that.
And just on Kareela, any idea, like, could that be residential coming or?
Yeah, yeah. There's a little bit. There's a bit of complexity in terms of the land and in terms of how it's structured and how it's zoned and those type of things. So I think aged care facilities was spoken about in one respect, and if you can picture there where the car park is, so that's an
Yep.
area where they can explore.
Okay.
But yeah, that's not something that's on the drawing board at the moment, but something that's in their mindset, going forward, as I said, with that 10-year plan type thing.
Now, you mentioned in your notes, and you've mentioned already about the stadium.
Yep.
Let's jump into that. What can you tell us about? I'm seeing here things about grandstands and other things like that. I'm seeing something called the Shire Sporting Alliance. Give us a bit of what Dino said about that.
Yeah, so a couple of things, right? So government funding and support is not on the radar anytime soon, even though they continue to fight that battle on a regular basis. So instead of just going to governments, etc., for funding from the Sharks football type of entity, they're looking now at basically getting through a group of sporting organisations within the Shire. So you talk about the soccer, the surf, the rugby union, and netball all as a group in terms of,
Yeah.
well, let's talk to council and or other parties in relation to, from a group's perspective, from a sporting aspect, because we know there's a lot of sporting that happens within the Shire, within those entities. And, maybe that facility somewhere down the track can be used for multiple, events type stuff, not just from a football perspective. But again, that's in the early stages, but it becomes then more than just one voice. It becomes a combined voice. So, again, that's just a different angle than what they've looked at in the past, and, keep exploring as we've said before.
Definitely the way to go, I think, because if anything is going to get funding, whether it's from government or wherever else, you got to tug at the heartstrings a little bit more than just go, we're a footy team, we want this. It's like, well, these are the different sports we represent. These are the different demographics that play these sports, different ages, different genders, yada, yada, yada. And at least then I think it's a bit of a fair fight from the Sharks' point of view. I think it's more
Yeah.
realistic. So I quite like that idea.
Yeah, for sure. And, Dino touched on the fact that the motocross event that was there late last year was a success from the Sharks' point of view. From the motocross, side of the fence, there was a few challenges and stuff like that. But I mean, they're open to doing that again, and constantly looking at different types of events that they can bring to Shark Park for additional revenue streams as well. But yeah, you've got to just start thinking outside the box a little bit and think of alternate sources to try and make money from there at the moment. Just touching on the ground again, right? So from the Leagues Club perspective, that's the main focus at the moment. There's this, people that have followed this. There's a stage 3 that's in the equation. So the stage 3 covers off the Peter Burns stand, the catering and food downstairs where I think the old summertime bar was, and
Yep.
then the function room. So get the Lease Club, that's the main priority, get that on board first and what have you. And then from the Peter Burns stand, that's a little bit of a a bit of a complex issue at the moment in terms of a compliance piece. But in saying that, once the Peter Burns stand becomes fully operational again in terms of additional seating, that upper deck that we see and a few other seats, well, then the ground capacity jumps up a little bit more, and then there's a little bit more general admission areas that can be open, plus some additional corporate, I think, which comes into the lease club side of it. So you probably go to a ground capacity of around about 7,500 once that Peter Burns stand comes into equation. And again, they're talking potentially start of 2027 to get that up and running. So once the season's finished in 2026, get onto that Peter Burns stand and get that up and running.
And we will get to it, but the hope is September, and I think you already mentioned it. September is the date they're looking at for opening the lease club. So that would mean they would have the whole off season to kind of work on that kind of stuff. I don't know how long it takes, but at least that would give you 4 or 5 months to kind of chip away at what needs to be done at the Pete Burns stand, I guess.
Yep, spot on. So yeah, the goal is the Melbourne Storm game there. I think it's the last round, September 2, round about thereabouts is the key one. But that's probably a stretch to a degree. But I mean, they're ahead of schedule in terms of some of the other internals and what have you. So that's the goal, to try and get it for that one. That's Old Boys Day. That's the Melbourne Storm. That's a 10-year anniversary. So
it's
ideally,
huge,
that'd be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, they are definitely striving for that. And as you say, it's hard to tell how realistic it is. Obviously, it's realistic to a degree, but the likelihood is really hard to tell depending on who you talk to, depending on the weather, depending on the people working on it. So it's a bit of a mystery, but all being well, that would be the time, which would be unbelievable. And it's not that far away, really, when you look at it. Let's go to merchandise. That sounds like a happy story.
Yeah, so part of the revenue picture is, what particular metrics have increased revenue over the last, 12 months, and merchandise was one of them. So good old Barnsey there, we can pat on the back for that one. But one of the key ones there was the fact that the merchandise store opened up within the precinct there. So I think that's a positive. And every time I'm in the store, there's always plenty of traffic in there. So the merchandise revenue was up, and then the number of items sold was up quite substantially as well. So I think I read there 61 odd thousand items of merchandise. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's a credit to Barnsey and all of his crew as well. But even just looking outside the circle, sometimes like he does with the retro stuff, especially, like it must be so challenging this day and age to kind of not so much get people to buy new things, but get people to afford to buy new things. And even things like the hockey jersey, and it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I hear it's doing really well. Like just different things they're incorporating. So that's really good news. That's all money in the pocket,
Absolutely. Yep. And the membership was up too. And and again, your memberships, central around reserve seating and what have you. But if there's whatever there is reserve seating at the stadium that's been the same for the last couple of years, they're still chipping away and increasing the membership as well.
And there was talk about home games taken away from Cronulla in the past. So Perth and Magic Round bring in a substantial amount of revenue.
Correct. So Magic Round, they're contracted for this year and next year. Perth is for this year, so that's, I think, next week against the Roosters. So combined rough figures, they spoke around 800 grand that makes in revenue from a game day perspective, and clearly we don't get that from the home games at Ocean Protect Stadium. So commercially it makes sense. Okay, you're taking a home game away, but again, bottom line from a monetary perspective, it makes sense.
And one of my favorite subjects, Michael, of course, is the Chinese restaurant situation. And there is some hope there, which is beautiful. And one of the things that intrigued me was the fact that they have a liquor license there already. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my understanding is they've got the liquor license there. So if they don't actually own the premises still sits with the developer.
Yeah.
So, but they've got the liquor license. So if anyone comes in there, and it can be a couple of different things in relation to, funny you mentioned the fact that there's Asian cuisine restaurants interested in that particular spot,
Right.
more than one. However, there's still a bit of a question mark in relation to once the lease club comes on board, they get a bit more foot traffic through the place. That's probably the best opportunity to look at that option. So probably for the time being, it'll still remain vacant for whatever reason. But yeah, once the lease club come on board, you might see a bit of momentum in terms of that spot being filled and potentially being another Chinese restaurant. Can we get the King Wan back, please? Come on.
I think we can. I think we can do it. I think the push of this podcast and other people around, I reckon we can do it. So on the liquor license situation, am I reading it wrong or right, saying that, for example, it's raining on Old Boys Day and they want to put them in there? Do they just need permission from the retail owner of the space and then they can go have a drink in there, or what? How does that work?
Yeah, I think so. And again, we saw the Old Boys in there last year. That was potentially a bit of a one-off, and I'm not sure whether or not they maybe served liquor there. I'm not sure. I wasn't in that precinct at the time. But yeah, they can do it like for packaging and stuff like that. So if they don't have the liquor license there for whatever reason, they've got an option that they can just simply shut the windows down so you don't get that game day experience. So having the liquor license there is a positive in that regard.
Because I am thinking from a corporate point of view, because they were doing corporates in there when it was the Chinese restaurant in the year or two before. I'm wondering if this year, can they get a bucket of fried chicken and some beers and go, hey, it's corporate, give us $300 a head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's that easy. I think there's something to do with having the cooking facilities and actual catering facilities on site there. So there's a bit of complexity around that. But I mean, I think once someone goes in there, turns it into a restaurant of some description, well, then I think that's when you can get a bit of momentum from it.
And so you think it's more likely it won't be a restaurant again until the Leagues Club is open?
That's the feedback they're getting there at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Was there any talk about the Leagues Club and what we're going to have in there? Any kind of details as far as food, bev, whatever?
Yeah, they spoke about a bistro of description, a bit more of an upmarket pizza type of offering as well. I'm not sure whether you might have seen pictures, but the outdoor area up there that'll have looking over the Botany Bay. There's the capability to have functions there. So, timely coming into Christmas parties and what have you in relation to that. A fairly big bar. Details still yet to be confirmed in terms of, are we going to call it the Steve Rogers Bar or whatever, the Sharkcast pod area or something like that. Still yet to be determined. But it'll probably primarily be that level that they're talking about, and a big screen and what have you, but not fully open air. I think I saw on some of the construction piece there, they've extended the roofing out onto that particular deck, so weatherproofed, etc. So that's the plan at the moment. There was nothing there today to show you what the internals look like, because I still think they're working through that. Mm-hmm. But I think that'll come through into fruition over the next probably few months about what it looks like. Yeah,
the roof is definitely on that outdoor foyer balcony area situation. So that's obviously necessary, but that'll be still a hell of a location for whether it's watching the footy or having a wedding or whatever it is. Like that's a prime bit of real estate. I got the feeling there's potential of viewing onto the ground as well in that regard. So I don't know how that works in terms of, if you go into the Lease Club for free and then you're watching the football. I don't know how that works, but to be revealed, I would suggest, surely it would be a corporate thing, right? If they're interested in making money, you would think it's a high rollers. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that that's what I want, but I would think, unless they could do first in best rest and just have people drinking and eating all day, but we should find out. They and this goes back to my year and probably your year as well. So he spoke about where the old auditorium used to be. So picture yourself in the old auditorium with the high ceiling. Yeah, that's primarily where part of this area will start to take shape from. Oh, okay, cool. Gotcha. Okay. And you mentioned before, I think, was it a possible food outlet for game day, maybe where the Summertime Bar was? Is that? Can you speculate on that a bit more?
Yeah, so as I said, that's in the next stage. So main priority get the Leagues Club for it sort of first, but then there's some additional stages off the back of that, and I think they talk about a couple of different stages. This is stage 3, so function rooms above where the Leagues Club will be, and then like a food and catering type facility downstairs. I think where the old Summertime bar used to be. So again, that's not on the same level as the Leagues Club, and again, there's some building and compliance issues around about that particular area. And the Peter Burns stand as well. But that's something that comes into the equation once the Leagues Club gets up and running. And fingers crossed, maybe that's an option on game day for additional food and beverage.
Oh, so from what you're understanding, it would be just a general food and beverage place, and then possibly on game day as well.
Yeah, that's that. That's yeah. Again, high level and still early days.
Yep, no worries. Now, I believe Shark Royalty, aside from yourself and Fitzgibbon, was in the auditorium, and that was the great Peter Gow. How's he going?
Yeah, the great Peter. Yes, in the house he was. Yeah. Sits there like it sits there just nice and quietly, absorbs it, takes it all in. But he's still, and I've heard this many years from Peter. He's quite complimentary towards the board and what they're doing, and from the financial situation and stuff like that. So always good to see Peter there and what have you. And it was good.
Did he ask any questions, or was he just?
No, he was just sitting back, pretty chill. But then he just made a statement towards the end, as I said, just being complimentary towards what the guys are doing. Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And who else was in attendance? I'm assuming from his Instagram, Steve Mace wasn't there.
No, so all good intentions. Steve was to be there because he normally does the opening address and what have you. Yeah. But apparently had some flight issues coming out of New Zealand. So he was still trying to get there for the second part of the meeting, but Dino was checking in with him and still hadn't come in. So was coming back from New Zealand and had some flight delays.
And so it was mainly just Dino running the show?
Yeah, Dino ran the show. Yeah, pretty much from the start. And again, to his credit, he does a good job. And there's a couple of questions from the floor and what have you, when he does his best to answer those. And and he does probably goes, I wouldn't say too far, but he's quite open in terms of telling the facts and the truths and a couple of some good insights. And again, from the start, they would have been lucky if there was 50 people there, and that's the same every year. And he presents, he's got like a PowerPoint presentation, etc. And he didn't necessarily want a lot of the information disclosed outside that particular domain, but if people are there, people come along to the meeting, he's comfortable to share that information.
And I think that works on two sides, Michael. I think the club could easily promote the event way better, and I think that they could potentially, and hear me out, potentially have it somehow work it out to be a bit more time friendly for everyone to get there. However, on the flip side, a lot of Sharks fans say big things like, I'm going to say this to this guy and I'm not happy about this. And they don't actually, even when they know about it, do much about it. So I think it's sort of a double-edged sword as far as if you want to call it low attendance. I don't know if you want to call that or not, but just the fact that there was 50 people there, there could have been a lot more if I think both sides kind of pushed a bit more. I don't know if that's what the Sharks want or not, but let me ask you this. Were there any unhappy campers? Because online I see things about, as I said, people saying they're going to go to these things and mention things to those in charge. Like, was anyone griping?
So in short, no. I mean, there are a few questions there that challenge the results and challenge some of the outputs that are there from the presentation. But again, Dino's quite open into answering those. And sometimes there might be a bit of a misinterpretation of what's in the report, or might be just worded maybe not correctly for mere mortals to understand like us. But in answer to your question, you're probably right too. I mean, I got notification through the mail as a member of the football club, so it's the football club and the Leagues Club.
Yep.
So there's got to be thousands of Leagues Clubs members, so they would get notification, or they should be getting notification that it's on, and it's probably comes out a month before. It's on the Sharks at Kareela, I think, website, the actual annual report and the notification. But there was an interesting question asked in relation to the Constitution, right? So there's normally some motions in relation to amendments to the Constitution, and that could be a range of different things. And then the question come up, well, is it possible to have access or visibility on the Constitution? And the short answer to that is yes. So, that's a step forward in terms of, what's the Lees Club about and what's the football club about and how do they operate and what's their rules and regulations, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of it's all bound by the New South Wales Clubs Act, et cetera, et cetera. But, there'd be stuff in there that's unique to the Sharks in terms of, what's on offer and stuff like that. So, it's a good point. I mean, I go to these things every year and again, right? I mean, there's only this amount of people that are there, and most people I've ever seen there was, at election time when I think Mike Lyon was challenging, the old constabulary from years and years ago, and that's like 30 years ago. So yeah, and again, everyone's given the opportunity. I mean, formally you can write in beforehand, but I mean, at the end of both the meetings, it's general business, and there's normally, plenty of questions that are asked. And as I said before, Dino's, you know, quite open to answering those. So it's good.
Was there anyone asking specifically about? I read a lot about the facilities at the stadium, like current facilities, and so not so much about like grandstand, but more about like the toilets not working, or was there any of that kind of?
Nah, not really, but I mean, it's on their agenda every day, right, to try and get it improved. They're fully aware of what the situation is and what have you, but they're limited in terms of what they can and can't do, etc. And these things cost money. And I'm not saying that we don't have the money there and what have you, but it's the priorities and what needs to be done in terms of versus what has to be done, etc. So no real commentary in relation to that. Just touching on the money side, probably going back a few steps, right? So back to the Lease Club construction. So apparently there was a bit of negative press in relation to what the club had to borrow to fund all this and what have you, when the number that was mentioned is way off the mark. So bottom line is, there's still money to be expended to finish the construction piece, but at the end of the day, the club has the money there and some to be able to fund it. So there's no having to, they'll dip into part of their own cash reserves. Plus, there's in the annual report, there's money available, but there's not as if we need to borrow additional money or get money from somewhere else to fund this. There's money in the coffers, based on all revenue streams and some. So no issues there.
And that's a really great part of the AGM, that you can find out that stuff. It's in black and white. Like it's hard to kind of fudge that kind of thing. Were there any questions about football, like current football questions about whether it's player retention or wins and losses or anything like that at all?
Not really. And I mean, as I said, Fitzy was in the house, and there was only really one question that come to Fitzy, and that was at the end. And it related back to a book that one of the members had read in relation to, I think, the Penrith system. So the Ivan Clearys and Nathan Clearys, and they talk about, the power of the brand and everything out in Penrith. So the question was put to Fitzy in relation to, how do we get that, from the Sharks perspective? And, he answered that quite well in relation to that. They're completely aware of that. And, what's the power that makes the Sharks, a juggernaut, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's tricky in relation to, we know you've got to build the trust in the community based on the team, right? So Penrith, they got four premierships and all this sort of stuff. So they are a juggernaut. So they've earned that and they've got that there. Yeah. So it's up to the Sharks to build that, right? So, Fitzy spoke about they're under no, disillusions in terms of who they are, what they represent, right? So you don't come in here and think you're better than anyone else. It's around the team, and the team's playing for the community and stuff like that. So they've got to earn that respect as well. So, and there was another question around, they're fully aware of who come before them. So in the dressing rooms there now, and you've probably seen this, there's a board up on there that starts at player number 1 being Monty Porter straight through to player number 500, whatever it is. I mean, Chris
Yep.
Vayella was the last one. So they know the history. They're fully aware of it. They invite the old boys in there. We spoke about Mick Mullane coming in, David Hatch coming in, and they talk to the squad there and everything. So it's about building that over time, etc., etc. I mean, the extension of Fitzy tonight for another 2 years helps build on that, and they're it's clearly results will start to bring the people on as well. But I mean,
Yeah.
you and I might have been one of them with 8 minutes to go on Saturday, half the crowd are walking out. So you don't necessarily want that, but
Yeah.
they've got to earn that respect, I think, is where Fitzy's talking about. But they're working hard, and that's at front of mind in terms of trying to get that to build the juggernaut. We got 1 premiership. Penrith won 4, as I said before, in 5 years. So they've got it
Yeah.
there. They've got the grounding and that type of thing as well.
It's good that he's giving the members that turned up that insight, because I mean, I know for a fact how much, I don't know some of it, but how much detail he specifically goes into to not only do the old boys stuff and get the young guys up to date with all that, but there's a great mindset he's got, and I won't really go into too much because I'll get into trouble, but he delves into a lot of I guess psychological kind of ways that you represent this team, and it's based around a few different subjects, but he really hones in on it. And every year it gets more and more. The more he's here, the longer the squad's together, etc. But then when the new guys come in, they're buying into it. And yeah, I think some people just think that they're a footy team and they win, lose, they go home, and I'm not here to kind of try and turn people around on Fitz. He's here until 29, so it's nothing to do with me. He's signed on. But, this guy works long hours, and he works on all sorts of things, including how to win a game of rugby league. But as you and I know, and our listeners know, so much more goes into a game of footy than just like running out and playing. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes behind it now. And he's on top of it all. And he works his butt off, and sometimes doesn't get it right, but I just think we're in such great hands. And even like tonight, some people are just so upset that they've signed him, and they think that, well, what's the rush? And it's like, well, you have to look at it from another club's point of view. There's not a whole lot of coaches on the market. Imagine if Fitzy was in the market now. Oh, okay, here's a guy who's made the finals every year. He's made 2 prelims, former great, etc., etc. He would go to a number of clubs for very good money, more money than he's on now at the Sharks. And that's not a reason necessarily to sign someone, obviously, but you'd tick up all the things that he's done, where they think he's going. Oh, okay, we're 1 and 2 to start the season. It's not a reason not to sign someone. You know what I mean? So, I wanted to touch a little bit on what you were talking about, the behind the scenes stuff and what it means to be a Shark. Like they do so much on that no one knows about. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't think that's potentially been there in the predecessors, and that's nothing against the predecessor being there, right? But I think he's stripped it right back now in terms of, this is who we represent. This is the history we've got. He spoke about also even pre-1967, right? So even in first division, like when I think I can recall that the Sharks might have been brown and white maybe at some stage. So he goes back even further than 1967 again, right? Which is going back to the grassroots. So
yeah,
again, that's pretty creditable in my eyes.
Yeah, awesome. And so leaving the meeting, Michael, you're pretty happy, pretty confident about the future?
Yeah, I think everyone's just hanging for the Leeds Club to open, and if they can get it open there on that, for the last round for the Melbourne Storm, that'd be great. And look, Dino's quite, positive in terms of it will be a high quality, venue that members can appreciate and enjoy and what have you. And proof will be in the pudding when it actually occurs. And I think it's all still positive. And even from a financial perspective, I mean, the football club was notorious for losing money all those years, and now it's making money. So, that's got to be a good thing. And Kareela still, is making a good profit as well. And, with opportunities to expand somewhere down the track. And as I said before, they're still looking at the additional income streams and revenues, and trends your friend, as they normally say. And I think we're trending in the right direction.
Was there any talk about if they don't make September, is it then just as soon as they can, or was there any talk about a future date after that, or not really?
No, I think they're working towards September. Early indications are they're ahead of that with some of the fit outs and stuff in between. But for whatever reason, if it doesn't meet September, I'd suggest, all things being equal, it wouldn't be too far off.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sharkcast Christmas party, I'd say.
That sounds good. It's going to be a game changer, that's for sure. I mean, we do struggle for pre and post game hangs, and a whole bunch of us are trying to work things out with that. But that'll solve a lot of problems, which is awesome. And look, I don't expect the Sharkcast lounge, Michael, and I would particularly obviously bow down and say no, let's go Steve Rogers first. But if they want to like maybe have a tap or something, a tap of lager or a shot of whiskey after us, I mean, that'd be kind of cool on Wednesday night. That.
There was a funny question in relation to have we thought about a statue of potentially the ET/Gallon type situation, and the short answer to that was no. It's been spoken about historically, but not on the radar. And then there was quite a funny little comment made from one of the directors. I won't say who his name was, but there was talk about a Paul Gallen fountain, but that'd be no good because Gal, I think, would be raiding the money out of the fountain. So that was actually quite funny.
Oh, poor Gal. Well, you know what? That disappoints me because we need some statues there, and I think that is something that we should all be harassing the club about, because as we've seen with Alex Johnson, you can get it done. It's not going to break the bank. It's not going to break the bank. So I'm disappointed to hear that news, but I reckon we can push him on that, because I think we need Gal ET. I think we need a Fafita one, to be honest, as well. So
I'm old school, so I think we need one. Yes, I think we need a Steve Rogers one too.
Sure. Hey, Michael, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
That's all right.
How are you finding your season so far? I know it's early days, but what are your thoughts?
Disappointed last week, like probably most of us for whatever reason, and a bit of an unsharks-like performance. But this weekend will be a bit of a challenge, and Canberra will be sprucing after the semi-final loss last year. So I think this week, then the Roosters, I think in Perth the following week, then the Warriors. So nothing's easy, but it's no game's easy these days. So let's hopefully look for a bit of a kickback this weekend and roll on from there.
All right, sounds good. Michael Gillard, thanks for joining us. No stranger to this show. We'll speak to you again soon, no doubt. We'll see you out and about at a game as well, and appreciate you jumping on. It's for those people listening, maybe watching. It's later on a Wednesday night, is it? Wednesday night. So appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon. Everyone else will talk to you soon as well. This has been Sharkcast Pod, special AGM wrap up kind of thing, and we'll talk to you all soon. Up.